Hello, lovely people. I hope you are doing good wherever it is that you're listening to this from today. Welcome back to another episode of Small Gains. I've got a guest for you today. I have brought on Talia, a queer coach from Brighton, an Aussie football player, all-round great human. We've never actually met. She's just someone I've been internet friends with for 3 years since I've been a coach. And I always love bringing these kind of people on the podcast because I've never actually talked to them aside from just a few DMs here and there and obviously supporting each other as queer fitness professionals. Tara coming on today to talk about training and recovery and knowing when you should maybe train tired because it will give you energy, or knowing when you should pull back and take a rest day. And this has actually been a really big theme in my own training, in Talia's training as well, and with so many of my one-to-one clients recently, especially over winter. And often just the world we live in right now, it's very demanding. Our attention and our energy is demanded everywhere. So often when we wake up in the morning and we plan to go to the gym and we're like, am I being lazy or do I actually need to take rest? It can be hard to figure that out. It can be hard to trust your intuitions, especially if you've ever been at a point where you felt like you've really forced yourself to train and you probably should have rested, or you've had a bit of a negative relationship with exercise over the years. Before I did this episode, I actually looked at some studies, and we didn't really talk about them in the podcast because we didn't need to. But just to start you off with this stuff, the studies out there show that regular physical activity boosts energy because it helps our cardiovascular system work more efficiently. So our energy levels may actually improve. So sometimes when we do wake up and be like, oh, I feel like training, it's making a decision, well, is this going to make me feel better? Or is this actually going to make me feel worse? Is this going to give me more energy? Or is this going to take it away from me? And I think often we can really think of exercise as something that zaps our energy and makes us exhausted. But when we think about all of the demands of everyday life, it's actually probably the one thing that gives us a lot of energy and gives us a lot of good feelings. And when you release more serotonin when you exercise and you do it regularly, you then sleep better. So then you're less likely to be fatigued the next day, which obviously then leads to more readiness to train, better energy, better focus. So it's a really big cycle that can be very, very beneficial. But if you're not feeling great, it can also be very detrimental. And the other thing at play is exercise can help reduce stress. And in turn, that can reduce feelings of fatigue and then combat a lot of the issues that often accompany stress. So again, when you feel stressed and you think, oh, I don't know if I should go to the gym, sometimes that could actually be really beneficial. Then on the other hand, sometimes that can send things the complete wrong way. So this is everything that we're chatting about today. Me and Talia have completely different coaching styles, which I think is really interesting because there's two completely different points of view. And a lot of Talia's thoughts around this actually covered things that I wouldn't have even thought about. And I really appreciated all of the insight from them. And I hope you enjoy it too. So without further ado, let's do the thing. Welcome to Small Gains, the inclusive strength and running pod where we celebrate progress over perfection and chase intentional incremental gains in our strength and running. Here we believe that small consistent steps lead to big transformations in our training, our lifestyle and our overall well-being. If you're new here, welcome to the most wholesome corner of the fitness industry. If you've always felt like a bit of an outcast in mainstream fitness norms, you are going to fit in amazing here, I promise. Hiya, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. We've never met in real life, but we've been internet friends for, I think, maybe 3 years. So it's definitely about time we actually had a real-time chat. And I am very excited about actually getting to know you a bit more. And even just from our pre-podcast chat, I've learned so much stuff about you, which is awesome. Talia, welcome. How did you get into fitness, doing what you do now? Where did everything start? Please give me the rundown.
How did I get into fitness? I have always been really, really sporty. My dad is super sporty. I've got 2 brothers and neither of them are interested in sport whatsoever. Me and my brother like to say we're like gender bender siblings where he's really into like makeup and drag and like I'm really into sports and gym and like that's kind of how we've always been since we were about 4. So I really got into sport when I was really young. And then as I got older, unfortunately, it took a little bit of a darker turn when I was kind of in my late teens. I started to have quite an unhealthy relationship with the gym. But thankfully, we're at the side of that now. So yeah, I guess I started going to the gym for not very pleasant reasons and trying to regulate and manage my undiagnosed ADHD when I was at university. And then as I got a bit older, I sort of started to see all the benefits of being in the gym and how it is a bit of a sensory gold mine, and how it really fed into my hobbies, which were always kind of sport based and movement based. Yeah.
So what when you had that like undiagnosed ADHD thing, because I know I relate to that a lot, and I know pretty much everyone that listens to this will probably be in the same boat. When you started finding the gym but you didn't necessarily know you had ADHD, what feeling did it give you? Like how did it help?
I guess before the gym came sports, and it helped because I was able to move. I was able to run, jump, skip, like move. Physically moving my body was probably the only time that I felt calm, I guess. Trying to be still in
Yeah.
school and listen was just agony. And then as soon as I got like out onto the hockey pitch, or like got to run around or run cross country and get a bit muddy, I was just in my absolute element. And then I guess in the gym, being able to put my headphones on and focus on something that was not only physical, but also I love the science behind the gym. Like I love learning about the body, and I love learning about all the different energy systems and all the different ways that the body can move. It feels like, I guess, are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
I'm shit at maths. I'm shit in school, but I really understand the body. I really understand the physics and the anatomy and the biology of the body. And so when I'm training, it's not just counting to 8 and doing 8 reps with a certain weight or whatever it might be. It's understanding that I'm like really manipulating my physiology for the outcome that I'm looking for. So not just physically in terms of like progression, in terms of strength and fitness, but also like my nervous system as well. Like I love being able to manipulate in a nice way my nervous system and regulate my body and my brain. So I guess it feels, to answer your question, it feels calming and it feels cathartic. I just love it. It just feels fun. Like it's interesting, you know?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. The amount of stimulation that you get from it is so beneficial. How did you get from like sports in the gym to like extreme sports and like Aussie rules football? Like that's awesome.
And that kind of happened by accident. So I had these housemates who moved into my house. For those that don't know, I'll just say what Australian rules football is for people. Me either, mate. So Australian rules football is a sport that they play a lot of in Australia, and it's really, really niche in the UK and in Europe. But it's very similar to rugby. It's played with a rugby-shaped ball on an oval-shaped pitch. And unlike rugby, you can go in any direction. It's much faster. It's much higher paced. I guess it once got described by somebody as running a marathon whilst having a boxing match. Then kind of you're covering a lot of ground, and also it's a contact sport, and also it's super fast. So it's probably the most extreme sport I've ever played, and I've played a lot of sports. It's so much fun, and the culture around it is phenomenal, particularly in the UK. Like the club, the Swans. Shout out to the Sussex Swans because they like changed my life for the better. It's so good. But yeah, I started playing by accident. So I had these housemates, and during lockdown, we were living together, and they were going on these long bike rides with these cool people. So I thought, well, I'll go on these bike rides, you know, when it was allowed. And we went on these bike rides with this group of people. And I was like, these people are pretty cool. I kind of like what they're about. They're all fit, healthy, interesting, kind, inclusive people. And they said, you know, you're pretty sporty, you're pretty fit, you should join our team. So I went along and just was immediately, had never felt so welcome in like a space in my life. Previously, I'd played netball and hockey, and as like a queer person who is neurodivergent, I didn't necessarily fit in very into like the hockey team or the netball team or whatever. But this one was like, yeah. And also, I will confess that there were a lot of hot people on the team.
How gay is it?
It's really fucking gay. It's really gay. Super, super gay. And I love it so much because I was only really like discovering my queerness in my early 20s anyway. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, there's all these really gorgeous queer people around. This is where I want to be. So that was my kind of ulterior motive, but I ended up loving the sport as well.
Great. And I guess like it's ADHD friendly because you're doing so many different things. So super, super stimulating, bare dopamine. It's inclusive. and it's very, very queer. So it's ticking all the boxes. If anyone's listening and you're looking to get into a sport, maybe this is your
Get
flavor.
involved. It is so good. There are sports up north. There are teams up north. I'll get involved.
Are they? You know that I'm going to be in like a YouTube hole about AFL.
It's also really, really queer and inclusive in Australia. So there's non-binary players that play on the team. There's a fantastic initiative to making sports more inclusive to people who are deaf or hard of hearing. It's really, really cool. It's a really kind of progressive sport.
And so you got a back injury. Was that in an AFL game? Please don't let this put you off. People get injured all the time.
The back injury was kind of a long time coming. I injured it a few times doing really dumb stuff. I injured it kind of surfing, and then I injured it on a night out, like goofing around with my friend after a few beers. And then I injured it in a dance class, which was really silly. So it was kind of really brewing and brewing and brewing. And then I played a game and I really like cooked it. And the physio, because we have a physio on the side of the pitch, was like, if it's a 6 out of 10 in terms of pain, you can go back on. But if it's more, you can't go back on. And of course, I wanted to go back on because I wanted to win the game. So I'm like, yeah, it's a 6. It's a 6. It was more like a 6.5, 7. So I went back on and then couldn't walk for like 2 weeks and I was in a lot of pain. And then what happened after that, I think that it was like really heavily based in trauma, and my nervous system was then really, really nervous around this kind of traumatic injury that I'd had, that then from there on out, every time that I even slightly kind of put my back in a vulnerable position, it would just seize up, and that kept happening. So it kept happening, taking a little tackle, or, you know, I saw quite a few physios and quite a few chiros, and they said, you know, there's nothing physically wrong with your discs or physically wrong with your back. You move really well, use your squat. I had one physio say I had the best squat in Brighton, which I will get printed on a t-shirt.
Straight on the
Oh
dating
yeah,
app
yeah,
bio.
get it on the bio. Sure. But yeah, there was nothing physically wrong with me, but it just kept seizing up. Playing sport. I have played for the national team for England, and once a year we have a competition called the Euro Cup, which we play in somewhere in Europe. So last year it was in Germany, another year we had it in Edinburgh, and this year it's going to be in Amsterdam. But I had to sit out last year because of this back injury. So I couldn't put myself forward for the team. I couldn't try out for the team, and I couldn't play any games with my local club. So I joined the WAG committee, which I loved. My partner also plays for the team.
What's that?
It's something that I made up. And the WAG committee is basically population me and anybody else who wants to join, but we are WAGs, wives and girlfriends, and everybody in between, who's on part of the pitch and shout, support, and drink a gin and tonic and enjoy the sport as a spectator.
In music, we call that goth girlfriends.
I'm the goth girlfriends.
Yeah, like you know, when you do a big festival and you like play a big stage and like everyone's like partners are like all on the side or backstage. Yeah, it's like goth girlfriend club. It's genderless, by the way, goth girlfriend.
I love this. Yeah, it's not
the
girlfriends, WAGs.
I love that you kind of like still got yourself immersed in it as well. How did you handle being out for that, and how did you handle resting? Did you push it, or were you sensible?
Pushed it a few times and immediately found myself unable to walk. And there was a bit of a wake-up call where I played a friendly inter-club competition, and I just took a really like innocent bump. So somebody like charged into me with their shoulder, and it was a really innocent kind of small impact. And immediately my back was gone and I couldn't walk and I couldn't get up. And then kind of 5 minutes later, my partner, who was also playing on my team, got like a pretty gnarly concussion. And I was kind of trying to run over to them to kind of be there and help them with this concussion. And I couldn't walk and I couldn't get to them. And then driving home, I was just thinking, what are we doing? You know, they were concussed. I couldn't walk. And all we thought was going to be just a nice Saturday out. And I just thought, I think I need to reevaluate what's going on here, because we're too young to be this kind of frivolous with our health and with our bodies and with our brains as well. I mean, concussions are no joke, and they're quite, you know, not common occurrence in the sport that I play, but they're not uncommon like any contact sport. So that was a real wake up call. we were driving home and my partner was in bits, I was in bits, and I just thought, what are we doing? Get a grip. Yeah.
And then did you rest, both of you? How did you like navigate training from that kind of light bulb point moment?
It was a bit of a journey of figuring out what worked for me. So I said to myself, that's enough of that. Made a decision to either quit the sport altogether or take a year out and focus on fixing my back. I went and saw a couple of physios. I tried to do the work that they gave me, but it didn't really help all too much. I started doing Pilates, which would, of course, if you have back injury, Pilates is really, really helpful. But I found it didn't work for me because it was boring for me. As somebody with ADHD, the repetition, the simplicity of it just wasn't working. I did rest and I did take a massive step back from training. As obviously I'm a personal trainer and I teach a lot in person. So I'm always moving equipment around the gym. And there was a moment where I realized I'm going to have to ask my clients to start moving their own equipment as well, kind of collaborate with them. And thankfully, my clients were all really understanding. And if anything, they appreciated the opportunity to learn a bit more about how to navigate a gym space and move a barbell through the gym and load up the bar with plates and things like that. So that was actually, another silver lining. I did rest. I did rest a lot. And I took a year out and I worked with a few different people. I spent a lot of time getting massages and acupuncture from my friend Kira, who is a fasting masseuse. In my time of need, actually came round to my house and set a massage table up out in my kitchen, right here. And I was just like, please help me. So she was fantastic. And I just asked for a lot of help. I asked my clients to help me move the equipment. I'd asked Kira to help me by giving me a massage. I asked for help, which was a huge part of that, I guess.
Yeah, fuck yeah, that's amazing. It's hard to almost admit that sometimes that you need that help. But you did it. How is the back now?
I don't want to speak too soon. Okay, I want to jinx it.
Okay, touch some wood.
So I've been working a lot on a few different things, and it's starting to look pretty good. So the weekend just gone, I had my first training session back with the England Vixens, the AFL team for England. And prior to that, I also had been doing some acrobatics in the gym, which probably were pushing it a little bit. So ordinarily, that would have been a recipe for disaster. Acrobatics, followed by AFL training, followed by a long drive as well. Long driving is not great for my back. So followed by driving back from London. And that was on Saturday and Sunday. And it's now Wednesday and I feel pretty good.
Hell yeah. So have you had a rest day since then?
Rest-ish, as rest day as I can with my job. So yeah, I haven't trained myself since then other than just being active. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. That's amazing. I've reached a similar point. I've had all sorts of ankle injuries, Achilles, broken ankles, sprains, whatnot, just potato genetics for legs. And I want to be a runner, but I did 7K on Saturday, and Sunday was all right. It felt like I'd ran 17K, but it didn't feel like I was going to wake up injured. Me and my coach Tom were like, "This is awesome, but let's not get hopes up." Woke up on Monday, felt great. My friend was like, "Do you want to go climbing?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." Monday's my normal rest day, but yeah, by Monday I was back and my legs felt great. My ankles felt great. And then on Tuesday I trained in the gym. And I was just like, this is the most I've been able to put my body through training load wise, whilst also being very sensible and listening to it. Obviously, with the style of training that I do, you are putting a lot of load through your body and it is an ambitious training style. And that's why we love it, because ADHD, dopamine, maximum fun and stimulation, maximum playtime. The feeling of knowing that you listened to your body, you took some rest, and then you did the hard thing again, and this time it actually worked and you recovered from it because you learn and you weren't silly. I can't tell you how smug I feel this week.
Feeling smug is honestly, my clients will attest to this. The feeling of feeling smug is all I'm really looking for out of my training regime. Is I just want to feel smug.
Yeah, we had a thing in Fuzz Culture Club recently where one of my clients was like, "I'm really sorry for bragging, but I just got another 5K PB." And we're like, "Yes, brag." So we had a day where everyone was just bragging, and I think just more of that needs to happen.
So do you know what? Hell yeah, it's your 17K. Hell yeah. So you feeling
Like,
smug that your ankles and knees are all feeling good? That's amazing. I love that. That feeling of having had an injury can feel so traumatic and so scary, particularly when your livelihood is based around your physicality. And that feeling of having had an injury, coming back from it, and tentatively feeling like there is kind of something on the other side of that obstacle, and starting to think, have I maybe made it onto the other side of the obstacle, is the best
yeah.
feeling in the world. And I'm so glad that we're both feeling that way at the moment. It's what a testament to our rest and recovery awareness.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I've fucked it so many times over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's taken me a lot of failures and a lot of hurt to learn,
Yeah.
and a lot of patience, and ADHD not patient.
Yeah. And like you say, the hurt, like there's been times where I've just been basically like sobbing because I can't believe that I've hurt myself again, or my back's gone again, or, I'm so tired of feeling like I can't trust something, my body that I've trusted for so many years, and I think for me, it's really tied up in like identity as well. And I'm sure it's the same for you. Like we are physical people, we are athletes, and then to have that kind of threatened by something as simple as an injury can be really scary. So the hurt is really, really tangible. Yeah.
Yeah, massively. Thank you so much for like sharing a ton of stuff about your background. Let's actually dive into what we're going to talk about, which is training when you're tired. You wake up, feel a bit shit, you maybe can't be asked, are you going to train? Or the difference between being like burnt out mentally and physically. And I thought this was a really good one to talk about when we were picking the topic, because I think recently I've had more conversations about that with a lot of the people that I work with, like, feel a bit tired. Should I train? Should I rest? And it can be quite hard to trust your instincts, especially if you're a beginner and you haven't necessarily learned a lot about your body's limits and what it's capable of.
I also seen so much discourse online around like, it's all about discipline. You're not going to be always motivated. Like, don't be a quitter. I've really been feeling this shift in energy towards a really kind of inaccessible attitude around training, and like, just stick to it and push through, And I wanted to highlight the difference between people who don't have barriers to fitness and people who do have barriers to fitness. So as somebody who's queer and neurodivergent, what works for me isn't going to work necessarily for everybody. But the same is true as somebody who is not queer, is not neurodivergent, does not have, a traumatic relationship with exercise, or does not have various kind of accessibility barriers to fitness. So it's all very well and good, Mr. Man saying, just go to the gym. But sometimes it's not that simple, and it's not as black and white as that. And
Yeah.
I really resent that black and white kind of thinking that's just everywhere at the minute. It's everywhere, and I can't stand it.
And I think when you see that, you're like, well, this person's just telling me to go anyway. This person's telling me to train through fatigue or like, being depleted. So I should do that. But actually, this is so nuanced. I think there's a critical difference between feeling like you can't be bothered, being a bit tired, and then being like profoundly mentally or physically exhausted, injured, or ill. And then knowing the difference is key when it comes to deciding whether to train or
Yes.
rest. So my first question for you is, how do you know the difference between that in yourself?
Interesting question. Because for a long time, I didn't know the difference. I've got it wrong for so long. I have been famous for burning the candle at both ends my entire life. I don't know if it's ADHD related, probably is. But my ability to rest and recover, and choose to rest and recover, not just be forced into resting and recovering, but choose to, has only really come to light in the last couple of years. I think even 3 or 4 years ago when I was a PT, I was somebody who pushed it too hard. But how do I know when it's time to rest and recover? My body is telling me certain things. So I start to notice if I maybe skip certain parts of my skincare routine, for example. Like if I'm just going to bed with a splash of water and a brush of my teeth, chances are I'm pretty knackered. Or if I start to skip out on certain things that I know I enjoy, for example, like breakfast, it just becomes like a slice of toast as I run out the door. I'm stretched a bit thin. So I start to lose touch with things that make my life kind of enjoyable, I guess. I'm stretched too thin. If I can't make room in my day to sit with a cup of tea and have my breakfast in the morning, then I don't feel like I should be making room in my day to go and run 5K. Like, if I'm not meeting my needs first.
Yeah, you're not nailing your basics. Whatever your baseline is, you stop doing it. And if you stop doing that, why are you then prioritizing the gym? That's really interesting.
Yeah, if I'm not nailing the basics, then I don't get to train. And I love to train. But yeah, if I'm not taking care of myself in that way, that's usually a good sign. The other thing as well, sometimes I count how many things I've done in a day. So if I am feeling quite busy, which I'm always feeling busy, I'm somebody who's always running from A to B. I've always got a really full schedule. I count how many things I've done in a day. And if it feels like too many, something's got to give. And sometimes it's the training, sometimes it's something else. But if I look at my calendar and I say, okay, so I've got a class in the morning, 3 PTs, I'm going on a podcast at lunchtime, or, doctor's appointment, dentist appointment, and then I'm having dinner with my partner. And then I'm trying to also squeeze in a 5K run or a weight session at the gym. Something's got to give. And sometimes the training is the wiggle room, but also sometimes the training stays and something else has to give, depending on kind of what I feel like I need to prioritize in the moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I love your way of thinking about that. And I also love what you said about, if your baseline of things starts to slip, then that's like a key indicator. And that's a way that I've never thought about it before, but it resonates with me a lot, because I get to a point where if I get to a point where my body feels depleted, I'll learn that from a training session. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but if I'm so habitual in my training, because it's also a big part of my job because of the content that I make. So training 7 times a week, I have rest days, but like training, the amount of sessions that I do is so habitual and is so ingrained in my life that I just get there and I have to force myself to pause and check in with how I feel. And if, for example, I think the main place I actually see it is in my big lifts. So when I'm hitting those big compound lifts every week, squat, bench, deadlift, cleans, and like either a push or a strict press, if they start to feel hard at the same weight, then I'm like, this doesn't feel good. And then it's making a decision after that. Do I need more rest? How much sleep did I have? Where are my stress levels? What's going on under the surface? Was that session a bad idea? And then the hindsight almost dictates the rest of the week. And then I'll start to shift things around. But that's after years of training consistently and learning what my body cues are when it comes to training and recovery. And again, like I'm only 3 years in as a coach, and I'm only only been fully online for maybe like 1.5 or 2. So the habit of being in the gym constantly for the job, I have to prompt myself to check in. And I think sometimes when we go on autopilot, we maybe forget to do the check-in. And if you're a person that goes to the gym every morning before work because you've got a really busy day and you're just there because that's your routine, it's like, how do you know when you wake up in the morning if that session is a good idea based on how you feel?
Yeah, I think as well, I take for granted that I'm in the gym every day anyway. I can decide when I get there whether I want to train or not. But I think something that I always hold very closely is like, you always reserve the right to change your mind at any point, right? So even if you get up and get dressed to go and train and suddenly something's not feeling right, just get undressed and go back to whatever you want to do. If you get up, get dressed and go to the gym, and you get to the gym and it's feeling a little bit overstimulating and you can start to feel your kind of hackles going up, that's fine, go home. If you get into your first warm-up, or you get into your warm-up and so you do that first big lift and you're feeling a little bit clumsy or a little bit uncoordinated, or it's just feeling really heavy that day, adapt it. Either adapt this session, like you go for a much lighter session or a much more kind of less nervous system taxing session, or just go home. It's fine. Just because you're there, and just because this idea of like a sunk cost fallacy of like, but I'm all the way here and I've already started. It's like, no, like you reserve the right to change your mind at any point.
I can't tell you how many gym sessions I've like given myself permission to bail out of, and I never would have used to do that like
Oh,
5, 6
I
years ago.
love bailing. I love it. 100%. I've had a client once came to me and she was raising a little baby and she was doing it on her own. And she came to me and she would bring the baby to the gym and I'd hold the baby and she would train. And she lay down to do a bench press and she basically fell asleep. And I remember thinking, wow, this lady is tired. It was really early in the session. I said, do you want me to just watch the baby and you can go home and get some rest? And I've never seen her like run out of the gym so fast. She was like, yeah, thank you very much. Bye. See you later. And so I got to hang out with this little sweet bug for a little bit. And she got to go and take a little rest and take a little shower. And I just think it's so important to pay attention to the cues. Like you say, if that lift feels heavy, your body probably doesn't have enough mustard to like get through the lift. I've been training for so long, but before I even pick up the weight, I'm like, I know what I need right now. And it's the same with my clients. Like quite often I'll be like, today I'm going to give you 20% less weight because I can see in the way that you're moving that you're 20% less energized, you know? And I think that just comes with experience and getting it wrong and, you know, going for a lift and failing that lift and being like, whoops, I probably,
That was a bit
a bit much, but that's okay. I'll just put it down and pick up a different one, you know, like being adaptable is huge.
I think that's the thing as well, isn't it? The one bit of advice that I feel myself just like banging on about to the point where all of my clients are like, shut the fuck up, is just like, you can go and you can do less. And that is 100% okay. And I think like what I want to get to the bottom of is it's the fucking depth of winter. You wake up and you plan to go and you wake up and you just feel really groggy. You have slept, you did get to bed on time, but you don't feel energized and up for it. How do you make the decision to go and train?
I think this one's a tough one because it is the depth of winter. And there are going to be times where you wake up and you're like, oh, it's dark out, it's raining, it's cold. I feel a little bit like staying in bed would be a really nice plan. And we've all had times where, I say we've all, maybe not. If you're a beginner, you might not have had a time where you've decided to stay in bed and then kind of regretted it. And you might not have had times where you've got up, got out, felt a bit groggy and then been like, oh, I'm so glad that I did that. I'd say first, try and fail is really important. Then secondly, I would say in terms of knowing when it's time to train and time to not train, my biggest one that I love is something about feeling big in your heart. So let's bring that one up. I think I've spoken to you about this before, but I like to take a moment and ask myself, does this decision make me feel big in my heart? So if I have got up, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, it's dark, it's raining, I have planned to go to the gym, and I'm thinking, oh, I really don't know about this. I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling groggy, I don't know about this. I take myself through the steps in my brain. I think, okay, I need to get up, get dressed, brush my teeth, wash my face, put my clothes on, get in the car, drive to the gym, go to the gym. And I think about doing those things and I reflect on whether that makes me feel big in my heart. So does it make me feel empowered? Does it make me feel glowy? Does it make me feel up and about and excited about the day? And if I'm still not sure, I kind of play the reverse through my brain. So I think, okay, so I don't get up, I don't get dressed. Instead, I'm going to stay here, lie in bed, maybe have a cup of tea, maybe I'll read my book for a bit. I'm going to stay and rest instead of go to the gym. Does that make me feel big in my heart? And generally, one of the two options will fill me with this sense of like glow and this sense of empowerment. And it's like a light bulb moment where I'm like, oh, right, that's what I now know I need to do. And regardless of what I've thought prior to that, I do the one that makes me feel big. I do the one that makes me feel empowered and big in my heart, and everything else can get funked. Basically.
I love this so much. You told me about this before we hopped on here, and like, I love it. I've never heard it, and it is the best. For me to now just completely flip that on its head. Have you ever done that and thought staying in bed feels like the right decision, and then you've done it and you're like, I wish I trained?
I think that really comes into play when you are out of touch with your intuition. So that does it make you feel big in your heart? Really only works if you are in a place where your mental health is pretty much on the right side of good, and you're feeling quite well connected with your intuition. If you're in another place, which, you know, I've had times where I've been not able to trust my intuition and not able to trust my gut, basically. If I'm in that place, that question doesn't really work so well. But still asking it is good practice, because it kind of implies that you are trying. You are trying to build a relationship with your intuition, even if that relationship still needs a little bit of work. Remind me, sorry, what was the question? The ADHD got me.
If you like woke up and you decided to do the cup of tea in the book, but then later you were like, oh, I wish I had trained.
Yeah. I would say it's not that deep. It's not that deep. Right. I'd say like, okay, you missed a workout. Cool. Do one tomorrow. Do one the next day. I understand that that is a privilege as well in terms of like time and resources. But I often like to think of things as like, and again, this is something that really only really works if you are in a positive kind of place of like solid self-esteem. But you either have a good workout or a good lesson. So if you don't go for a good workout and you think, oh, fuck, I wish I'd gone, you've got a great lesson there, where like you think, okay, well, whatever I was feeling in that moment tricked me. What was that feeling? Was it insecurity? Was it anxiety? Was it laziness? What was that feeling that tricked me into thinking that I didn't want to train when I actually did? And I think there's always going to be value in a moment like that, right? So like you think, damn, I wish I'd gone to the gym. Enjoy that feeling. Enjoy that feeling of, I missed out, because there was probably a time for everybody where that feeling you felt like, I'm never going to miss out going to the gym, or, like, what do you mean you wish you'd gone, And it's like, if you're in a place where you're thinking, I wish I'd trained and I didn't, and I missed out, what a privilege, what an amazing place to be. So just like savor that little moment. And if you either have a good workout or a lesson, I really, really believe that. So that would be something that I would suggest if somebody's like, damn, I wish I'd gone. Just try and remember that feeling, I guess.
Yeah, it's just all data to take to the next morning. So you wake up the next morning and you're like, I missed training yesterday and I kind of wish I hadn't. So today, that's the thing that's going to feel big in my heart because I missed it yesterday.
Exactly that. It's all data. It's all valuable information. There's no mistakes. There's no mistakes. It's all valuable information.
100%. And I think going back to like the intuition thing, this can be really important for people that have previously had a rubbish relationship with exercise. They've maybe done it for different reasons, but now they've got different goals. They're either just exercising for long-term health because they enjoy it, or they're maybe training for something, like they run a certain distance, do a race, lift a certain weight. But it can feel like you can't trust that intuition when you are in a place mentally where you have had a bit of a rough ride with stuff. There might be other things going on that make you think, well, I'm just laying in bed and I just really don't want to get out of bed. But then actually, with the research and the evidence that we know about exercise being energy giving, not taking, how do we then make that decision that is actually, I'm going to go against my intuition today because I think this might help me?
I think one of the things that you can do, it's a good question, isn't it? Because I've also had a rough ride with my intuition, definitely. And I've also been in places where I've trained when I should have rested. And if your exercise is not giving you energy 9 times out of 10, something needs to change. So I would say 9 times out of 10, you're not going to regret a workout. And then 1 time out of 10, you're going to get there and you're going to be like, oh, shit, probably should have just stayed home. But 9 times out of 10, you're not going to. If you are regretting it more than once out of 10 times, maybe something's not quite right. Maybe you are exercising in a environment that doesn't feel right for you, or in a sport that doesn't feel right for you, or with a community that doesn't feel right for you. And I would say, when you find your rhythm with exercise, you can put your trust and your faith in the process a bit more, So, for example, if you find like a trainer like yourself or myself that kind of can help you make that decision for you, sometimes somebody with more experience can help you. I've had clients text me and say, oh, I feel like this or that, the other. I don't know if I should train today. What do you think? And I might ask them a few questions. And if they need me to decide for them, I'll decide. I'll make the call, And often, like, even my partner is like, oh, I think I want to train today, but I don't know. It's like, she'll ask me because I have more experience, so I can make that decision for her. But if you don't have the luxury of
Yeah.
having somebody in your life that can help you make that decision for you, and it's a good question. It really is. I think there's just so many different ways to train. You can train in a way that meets your needs. You know, maybe you just stretch. Maybe instead of going to the gym, you go for a swim. You know, maybe you just mix it up a little bit, and a bit of light activity, a bit of walking, a bit of, foam rolling instead of a big heavy workout might just about do the trick.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's why I push my people to reach out to me, like if they aren't sure, because I'll get a message at like 4 p.m. like, I'm meant to go gym tonight, but I just don't know. And then we just break it down together. So it's like, how did you feel? How did you sleep last night? How are your stress levels? You know, have they got a race coming up? Have they got a really big
Yeah.
goal? What is the big picture? So I suppose if someone doesn't necessarily have a sounding board like a lot of our one-to-one people will have with us, maybe it's a case of actually almost like playing it out in your head and doing like that mental check-in, which is like, how did I sleep last night? Did I get an all right sleep? Yes. How has today been? Has it been really stressful? What's like, where are my mental spoons at?
Mhm.
And what capacity do I have going into, say, a busy gym at rush hour? And is the outcome of that gonna actually make me feel better? Or is it just gonna ruin my day, make me really anxious and overwhelmed? And I think if the answer is you're not sure, then the only way is to go and find out and give yourself full permission to leave. I think that's all you can do. And I think that's also the best that you can do for
I think
yourself.
it's really interesting that you've said that, because firstly, we probably should have caveated this entire conversation with the caveat that some people aren't exercising to achieve a certain goal. So if
Yeah,
you're somebody who doesn't have a particular goal in mind, you kind of have a bit more flexibility and a bit more freedom. But then on the flip side, if you
totally.
have somebody who, for example, has a big race coming up or a big event coming up, or they're training for a particular goal with a deadline, you have a little bit less flexibility and a little bit less freedom. So my advice would change depending on what somebody's circumstances are, like you just said. It's interesting that you've kind of said to go to the gym, see what happens, and like we said, reserve the right to change your mind at any point, which I do feel really passionately about. But my mum has been trying to drill this into me for years as somebody who burns the candle at both ends. She has been saying to me for years, if in doubt, leave it out. So if in
Yeah,
doubt, leave it out. Unless you're an elite athlete training for an event, which some people that we train are, and some people we train with are, just leave it out. Cut yourself some slack. There's more to life than going to the gym, which is kind of so counterintuitive for me to say. But I really think it's okay. It really is okay to skip a workout. But if you
yeah,
feel like you're going to get some catharsis. So I think sometimes when you're stressed and you're tired and you need more energy, going to the gym can also give you that catharsis. I think the thing that's made me really the thing I locked onto there in what you were saying was a busy gym at rush hour. And that's the bit that I
yeah.
simply cannot abide. So
I
if I have to go to a busy gym at rush hour, I'm not going. I'm going for a run. I'm going to do a home workout. I'm going to go and find some sort of sport to play with my friends. I'm going to go shoot some hoops. But the idea of going to a busy gym at rush hour and lifting weights, that's kind of the line for me. It takes too much from me, I find.
Yeah. I think what we've also got to remember is that we are very much in charge of our own schedules. It's mega privileged, but I'd say 80% of my people, I don't know about yours, but probably 80% of my people are either going morning or evening. Morning is obviously better because it is just less busy, because less people want to get up
Mm.
and do it. But evening, every now and then, recently, I've actually been training on an evening just because of logistics. But I am in and out. I am not resting a moment longer than I need to. I am not filming a single video. But with a lot of our people, they want to film a form check so we can check it out. And they want to maybe take their time and enjoy it. And that's the only time they can go. And I suppose it's then like, is not that deep. If you really just don't feel like it is okay. We're not professional athletes. But then if you are training for something specific, like a comp, do you suck it up? Maybe you do. I think it depends on your recovery and your energy levels, because sometimes sucking it up isn't the way. And Sometimes it's maybe kinder to try and be flexible, but then if you can't be flexible.
Yeah, I think there's a very big difference in your experience in or your circumstances and my circumstances there, because I'm
Yeah.
extremely privileged to have access to a very small private gym, as are most of my guys. So we don't really have that same rhythm of the gym. It's not. I
Right.
don't have the rhythm of the big gyms that at 5 o'clock it fills up and at kind of in the mornings it fills up. So that's not really part of my calculation, which is a huge privilege. I totally acknowledge that. Do you suck it up? Sometimes I guess so. Sometimes I guess so. If you have a goal in mind, sometimes I guess you have to suck it up. I am not one of those people. I think I am somebody who will always try and find a solution to any sort of problem. And if the problem is the busyness of the gym, I'm going to try and find a way around that.
Yeah. I think if someone's like, do I suck it up and go and put myself in this position that makes me feel really shit and it's anxiety inducing, I agree that there does need to be a solution. And if that solution is paying £30 more a month to go to an independent gym that might be quieter and have a membership cap that's a little bit further away, I would do that. And that again is a privilege because some people are paying 20 quid for a gym membership because that's all they can. But if there is a way to pick a different gym, to pick that member cap, if that's the solution for you actually feeling a bit more fired up to go to that space, that's cool. Like, I had a person start working with me a few months ago and they had one gym. And after like the second week, they were like, this really isn't working for me. Not a vibe, like sensory issues off the chart. I am not prepared to do this. They are very driven and ambitious with their training. They don't have comps or anything like that. They just fucking love it. And so they went and found a different gym that's like, you almost book in by the hour. So you book in when you're going to be there and there's a cap. So there might be other people there, but might be like 4 other people there. And they then go at 5 in the morning, not because they love getting up at 5 in the morning, but because they know they're going to be the only one in there. They can blast all their music, get all their form checks, and that makes the experience for them awesome. And then they feel really fired up for it. So then doing the harder thing at 5 in the morning, they're like, fuck yeah, I get to go to this gym that's way quieter with all the good gear. I get to blast all of my music out loud. I get to easily record all of my form checks to send to Lucinda. And as a result, their training is obviously awesome. They feel fired up about it. So I think if there's almost like apprehensions around your training style, if you hate your program, if you hate your gym, then it needs to fuck off.
That's basically what I'm saying. And I think like the fitness industry has changed so much over the last 10 years. Like this idea of gym rush hour, personally, I don't know what it's like in Leeds, but in Brighton, it doesn't have to be like that. It's no one's training like that here anymore. Okay. Like the gyms have got alternative solutions. Like you say, one of the gyms that I work at, it's a little bit more out of town, but you can book one of 3 slots. So you'll be one of 3 people in the gym at any one time, and there's so many different configurations of gym in Brighton Hove where if the rush hour gym isn't for you, you don't have to do it. And I just think like if you are solution focused and have a growth mindset, you can find solutions to so many problems, which means that you don't have that apprehension around your training. Like if the sensory experience of going to the gym isn't working for you, that's fine. We will find a solution. Like if it's the affordability, we'll figure it out. There's so many free classes in Brighton as well that you can attend. Like,
Yeah, and I think maybe there's probably going to be a lot of people that realize that there is models of gyms that aren't commercial gyms, so you don't have that rush hour. So in Leeds, I train at commercial gym because it's really convenient, and I get to go in the middle of the day. When I go at 7 o'clock, it sucks, and I smash it out, and it's fine. I know quite a few people there. I have people I can say hi to. I used to work there. I'm very comfortable. It feels like home. I have another gym that I train at that is much quieter, that is £10 more, and it's further away, and it's 100% worth a little bit of extra effort. And I think if people put the time in to look for these places, because they're not always easily found, and like the standard mainstream fitness marketing, the pure gyms, the gym groups, they're all advertised, so it puts them at the forefront. But the little indie gyms that don't have the budgets, the CrossFit boxes that have open gym sessions where you don't have to do CrossFit, you can just go and do anything. Those memberships aren't even that expensive either.
The Pure Gyms and the gym and all of those big name brands, the quality is not what you might be looking for, even though that, like you say, they're at the forefront of everything. And I know that they are super, super cheap. And I know that they are super affordable for some people. And that's awesome. I think that's a really great thing in terms of accessibility. But like you say, the indie gyms, there are configurations. There are things available to you. And if money is a problem, which for so many people it is, there are still ways around it. There are so many free provisions as well. I work at a gym called the FMG Project, and they run a class called Misfits. I'm sure you've heard of Misfits.
Yeah,
Shout out Misfits. Like, they are doing incredible things here. And I think the provision of free classes is just going to grow and grow and grow because people realize how important movement is to their health and their mental health. And yeah, I feel really passionately about that, but there is a solution to most problems. That's my whole thing, right? My whole thing is about bringing barriers down and helping people access quality training. And yeah, I just feel like I don't want anyone to ever feel like they have to suck it up, you know? I don't want that to be a part of the conversation of just suck it up.
Because that's the thing that doesn't feel so fun about it, right?
And doesn't feel so sustainable either. If you have a goal to, for example, if you have a goal, you're running a marathon, okay? That goal to run that marathon should make it feel like it's not a suck it up kind of thing. You know what I mean? If that goal isn't exciting you enough that you want to go running in the rain, then maybe we want to adapt the goal. Maybe the goal is really,
maybe it's not the right goal,
you know?
Yeah, and maybe you want it because other people are doing it, but then maybe you try it and it's not your flavor, and it's okay to just admit that as well. I am training for a marathon at the moment, so like mine's at the end of April. If I wake up on my long run day and it's raining, I'm still gassed to do it. I'm so fucking excited. When the snow happened in Leeds recently, some people did run outside and like fair play, but like me, no proprioception.
Not with those ankles, bro. Not with those ankles.
Yeah. But was I still excited to run 14K on the treadmill? Not as excited, but I still really wanted to do it. I wanted to do the thing because I love it. And I just put Criminal Minds on, and everybody around me thought I was a bit bonkers bringing an iPad, but I had a really nice time, and it wasn't ideal. But that was not a suck it up moment in any sense. That was I need a different solution. This is what I'm going to do. So your point about training styles, goals you enjoy, things you enjoy, forms of movement you enjoy, that can be half the battle. Doing stuff that you think you should do because maybe influencers or people on the internet tell you that you should do it. And obviously we believe that everyone should do a form of movement and like loaded resistance training because long-term health, you know, being mobile, being able to live the rest of your life the way you want it, that's the benefit. But there's just so many ways that you can go there. There's so many ways that you can get to do that. And this is obviously like a hybrid strength and running podcast, but there's a lot of people listening to this that maybe are runners and that maybe just do strength and don't necessarily do both. But if none of those things are serving you and you're just doing them like because you feel you should, don't be afraid to explore the other options.
Absolutely. I think, the key here is like, if your goals are aligned with your values, then yes, sometimes it's going to feel easier than others to get up and get out and go and train. But hopefully it's consistently going to feed you and feed your soul and be something that you are excited to go and do. I think if you find yourself frequently thinking, I've just got to suck it up and go and do it, I think maybe something needs to adapt and change, you know?
Yeah, if it's not feeling big in your heart.
If it's not feeling big in your heart, do not do it. Yeah. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Just do something else.
Okay. All right. Last little bit before I leave you for today, or you leave me, either or. Let's talk about deloads when it comes to recovery.
Yeah.
Hold on. Sorry. Someone's at my door. Almost Jehovah's Witnesses. We could have asked him what he thought about rest and recovery and making your heart happy. Think we know what the answer is going to be, though. All right, deloads. Do you plan deloads?
I don't. No, I don't follow a particularly strict program, and it doesn't work for me. Demand avoidance with ADHD, it's not for me. I don't program a deload, but I do follow the natural rhythm of my body. So people generally program deloads every 4 to 8 weeks. For anyone that doesn't know what a deload week is, it's when you massively scale back your training for a week and give your body a chance to recover and rest, which is exactly what we're talking about. But I don't program them. I don't insist on having them. But naturally, every 4 weeks, the rhythm of my body wants me to slow down. So particularly in line with my hormones, there's a week kind of in my month where I'm clumsy. For a start, I'm clumsy. And my strength is massively depleted. I'd say I'm probably like 15 to 20% less strong. And so I give my body the opportunity to do what it wants, which is not train hard. And that might look like taking a couple of days off. That might look like taking a lot of intensity out of my session and maybe not going to AFL training that day, or just taking it a lot easier, or going and just not running as hard. And then there's this particular week where I'm in kind of like a power phase where I will fucking send it and it feels great. And in that week, I'm like, yeah, let's go and do sprints. Yeah, I'm going to train 3 times in one day. Yeah, I'm going to do all this, that, and the other. And like, because I know that I'm in my power phase, that feels like a safe thing to do in that time. And then I also know that I'm going to have that rest and recovery coming up in 2 or 3 weeks. And then when I have that rest and recovery, if I'm like, oh, but I'm not training and I'm worried I'm going to lose all my progress, I know I'm not going to, because next week, you bet your ass I'm going sprinting. You know what I mean? So following the natural rhythm of my body has been so incredible. I've been doing that for like a year or two. And I can't tell you how much it is like positively influenced my relationship with training.
Yeah, the best, isn't it? And it's very similar for me. I do have a coach that does my programming because I just find it easier to have the guesswork taken out of it. And stuff that I learn from him is just like, it makes me so much better because, I'm 3 years in, I've got so much to learn still. The way that we do it, and the way that I do it with all my clients as well, to be fair, is that, we take stock of how you're feeling and how your recovery is, especially when it comes to the running. Because if you're pushing the running and you're doing more distance, or you're pushing the speed, the exertion on your body and your central nervous system is through the roof, and you're not going to necessarily have that energy every week. For me, I'm on testosterone. My periods are like random as fuck because I'm not on a full male dose. I'm on like, well, I say male dose in inverted commas, but I'm on a low dose. I still get periods, so I still have a menstrual cycle, but it's just random as fuck. I also have endometriosis, so that can also just appear and wipe me out. And I know that moving my body actually really helps, getting the blood flow around my body eases the pain. But am I going to do like squats at 2 reps in reserve that day? Absolutely not. No, I'll warm up with the empty bar, put a bit of weight on if it feels good. Do I do the full workout? I don't know. Do I do like my conditioning session? Probably not. If it gets to the end of the week and my long run's there, I'm normally like, yeah, that'll probably happen. But if I need to call it, I call it. And I think naturally I fall into those patterns of deload, and they're not predictable. But also based a lot around how the body responds as well. Put in menstrual cycle, HRT out the way as well. And injuries as well. If you're just tired and depleted, there's a decision that needs to be made to maybe intentionally do a low volume week. And I had a person on my team last week that was like, I feel really tired. And I was reading their workout comments when I was updating their training, and they were like, oh, this didn't feel as good as normal. This. And my prompt to them was like, are you really tired? And do we need to reduce volume? And they were like, I don't know. And I was like, do you need me to tell you to do a reduced volume week? Because I think you need one. And he was like, yes. And what was happening there is like, he's a trans man. He was coming to the end of his like T cycle. And obviously the end of that, you do feel depleted. And so it was really easy to put it down to that. But actually, when we got to the bottom of it, it wasn't that. He had a lot of stress going on. The world is on fucking fire, especially for trans people. We are tired and we're not feeling great. And a reduced volume week, what that looked like, we took 1 workout session away, 1 cardio session a day. This person trains a lot, more than the average person, just because they fucking love it. So we dropped down 2 sessions, but what we also did is completely took away the intensity. So we were working a lot further away from failure. And that was hard for him to do because he loves training, he loves getting it, loves sending it, but he learned the lesson that was what his body needed. He took his rest week, his check-in the next week, he was like, right, I'm fucking gassed, let's fucking go. And the learning from that is that we can do that again whenever it needs to happen.
It works.
And it works, and it doesn't have to be like preempted or pre-programmed because we're not professional athletes. It isn't that deep. We're just having a nice time lifting big things.
Exactly. And professional athletes are not training at 100% every session. They are not.
Yeah.
They are not training at 100% every session because sometimes you've got to go slow to go faster, right? But I think just to touch a little bit on what you said about HRT as well, like I can I've had clients in the past where I can be like, have you had your T-shot this week? Or, I can kind of tell because all of a sudden they are fucking lifting all these incredible weights and I am super jealous. And I'm like, I think, I can talk to them about that. And I think that's one of the most important things of like working with a trainer that knows what's going on with that. It's interesting that you said about having endometriosis. I used to have PCOS. I don't meet the diagnostic criteria anymore. But that was something where my periods were really, really random, that I couldn't quite cycle my training as well as I can now. Right now, my periods are basically reliable to the day. And that is really great because it means I can cycle my training, but that's not necessarily something that happens for everybody all the time. But generally, if you can feel it out, and like you say, like feel out your stress levels, feel out your kind of mental load levels. The biggest one I think that you mentioned that I really relate to is the world is on fucking fire. And, whatever's going on in the world, in the news, as a trainer of people who are of minority groups, I am interested in knowing how affected they are by the news and by what is going on in the world, because it affects how we behave in the gym and how much load we have available to us mentally, physically, emotionally, all of that stuff. So hell yeah, I want to know how you're doing at the start of a session. I want to know what you've done this week. I want to know your stress levels. I want to know physically how you're feeling. And I think with experience, I've been coaching people in person for 6 years. Some of my clients I've been training for 4 years, every single week. I know what their body is telling me. I can see it. I can feel it from the way they talk to me, how they are feeling. And I think, sometimes having somebody to be like, I am taking away some intensity. Even when somebody's like, no, I want it. I'm like, no, we're taking off some intensity because you need a rest. And I'm sorry. I know you want to push, but I'm going to give you a bit of tough love here and say, we're going to take it a little bit easier. And it will be so much more valuable to you long term than one quick, intense workout might feel in terms of like a massive rush of dopamine and endorphins. Long term, this is going to serve you more.
Yeah, 100%. And I think if you're not necessarily in the position where you work with someone, so for anyone listening that doesn't work with either of us, ask yourself, what would you say to your mate? If you had a mate and that mate was like, oh, I'm really feeling it, I really want to push it, but like, I'm not sure. What would you say to your mate? Because if you would say to your mate, maybe you need to take it easy and see how that goes, that's what you need to do to yourself. We've all got a responsibility to ask the slightly harder question and maybe give ourselves that tough love when we need it. And the tough love is tough, but it's not bad. I think sometimes when you think about giving yourself tough love when it comes to fitness, it does feel like hustle harder.
That's the irony, isn't it? That is the irony.
But when we're talking about tough love, we're saying, do we need to rest more? Do I need to work on my sleep hygiene because it's awfully bad? Like, am I nailing the basics when it comes to like self-care, nutrition, like looking out for myself? Like, and if you're not doing any of that, is the tough love just being like, just take a week, just drop 3 workouts, drop all your workouts, drop one. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
It's so interesting. Yeah, tough love, I guess. We are taught for so many years, like tough love is about push, discipline. But actually, I guess you probably know whether you're the kind of person that needs more of a push to go than to slow. But if you are somebody who is finding they're not resting and recovering enough, then let this be your like permission. Like myself, Talia, and Lucinda, we give you permission to take a week off. And yeah, it ain't that deep. Take a week off. Take it easy.
Thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
on.
thanks for having me. We had so much fun. Sorry for yabbering on.
Yes, people, that was Talia. I will put their handle in the show notes. I hope you had a lovely time listening to this. As always, keep chasing the small gains, and I'll see you in the next one. That's me out. Bye.